And take the time to balance the weight through the feet. Not only front and back, left and right, inside and outside. And becoming aware of the way we need to use the leg muscles to create that balance. Leg muscles both holding the bones, a feeling of pressing down into the feet. And then see if you can become aware of the inner thighs, the way in which they're part of the thigh muscles engaging, and create a bit of a lifting through the inner thighs. And then following up into the hips, there's a natural engagement for the low belly. And going to the back of the hips, sinking down in the tailbone, back of the waist, able to lengthen because the tailbone drops. Coming up to back body between the shoulders and up to the neck and the base of the skull. And they're lengthening up and the tailbone dropping down. And just feel that body for a moment. And then we're going to use our fingers, just gently rubbing on the abdominal wall. We rub with the fingers, we can tap with the fingers. Both are effective. We want the abdominal wall both able to move freely and have a bit of energy. So we're not trying to lock it in place. And then let's shift to the breathing. We'll start with the fingertips low, just above the pubic bone. And as we breathe in, running the fingertips right up the center line. Letting the elbows lift, getting the fingers up around the collarbones. Holding the breath as we reach wide. And we're going to breathe out as the arms lower down. And let's perhaps do a couple more where we breathe out with the lips slightly parted. It'll help us slow down the out breath. And our last one. And just before we move again, find the tailbone, the base of the skull, gently draw them apart. And when we're ready to move, the heels float off. When the heels land, the toes lift. And our last lift of the heels. And let's keep the toes off the mat. So just the big toes reaching down for the mat. And then switching. We'll do a handful here. And then we'll just bring all the toes up and explore spreading them wide. And then let's return them. And then just dig the toes into the ground, one side then the other, making those little muscles at the front of the foot there do a little work. And then we'll come neutral and just give the feet a moment to release. And just a last move, we're going to lift the inner line of the foot. So lifting the arch, shifting the weight outward, and then reversing. And then when the weight moves in towards the arch, just pause there. Let the toes release. So a little more weight through that inner line of the foot. And from there, we're going to bend our knees. Knees come so they're touching, and we get an easy circle. Switching direction every so often, just moving freely at the knees. And sinking the tailbone here. So the low back, the back of the waist, wants to feel open. And then let's bring ourselves into the center. Just imagine there's a little chair we're going to sit in, tailbones tucked, hips sinking, and engage the glutes, squeeze into the hips. And then when we're ready, we'll just come right tall. So bring the fingers up to the center line, let the elbows lift, let the shoulders pull us up and keep drawing up nice and long. Let the arms release long, the gaze upward, moving the hips forward. And then we'll just look straight ahead for the out breath, bringing our arms down. Okay, we'll take the feet a little wider apart. Think of the heels under the hip sockets. Hands on the hips, knees soft. So knees are bent a little bit. We're going to circle again. This time, get the circle happening from the hips. Keeping the tailbone, that dropped little bit of tuck at the tailbone. Give ourselves a change of direction every so often. And when it feels like it's the same amount in each direction, just pause in the center. And we'll do one more circling, but now drawing a horizontal figure 8. So crossing in the center line, looping to each side. And when you go through center, let's change direction. And when it feels like it's the same in each direction, just coming in the center, dropping the tailbone, and then sliding the hands down to just above the knees, and bend the elbows round the back. And just work with the image of moving our collarbones towards our pubic bone. And really trying to circle the back over. And we'll keep the hands on the knees, but when we breathe in, straighten the arms. Push the tailbone back and down. Lift up at the base of the skull. And try to stretch out the spine here. At some point, we're going to exhale, and then we'll clearly tuck the tailbone, and we'll round the back over, tucking the chin. We're going to take one more as we're ready. As the arms straighten, the chest goes forward, back of the skull lifts, and the tailbone goes down. So belly's clearly working here in towards the low back. And then the exhale rounds us over last time. Now to leave here, we're going to come very tall. So start with the fingers moving up the center line, elbows lifting, shoulders lifting, and then pull the body up with the shoulders, let the arms unfurl, the gaze upward, and then with the hips moving forward. And then let's look straight ahead. And when it's a breathing out, having the arms come down. Now as the arms descend, have that feeling of the ribs lifted, the shoulders brought up off of the ribs. And then when we get down, just turn the palms forward and backward. Just a couple of times. And then releasing here. Just some gentle movement. Okay, we'll take our feet a bit wider. And heels, shoulder width, perhaps a little past the shoulders, where it works for our anatomy. Now turn the feet in and bend the knees, sink the hips. I'll put a hand in the front, hand in back, and just a gentle forward and backward movement at the pelvis. I want to end up with that little bit of tuck. It doesn't have to be extreme, not really shoved forward, but a feeling of dropping in my tailbone. And if I rub the back of my waist, it feels pretty flat. That gives us the most length between the vertebrae here. When I found that, I'll start with the hands on the hips and just a little side to side motion. I want to keep the hips pretty still. And as we move side to side, this is gentle. Feel where the weight is in the feet. See if we can add a bit of weight to the inner line, base of big toe to the heel. And then the knees, energize the thigh muscles as if they're going to push the knees really wide apart, but we don't need a lot of movement from the knee. And so the legs are secure. We'll just come still for a moment, and then we'll slide the hands up onto the low ribs. And again, going side to side. And then coming still again, and then make light fists and bring them high up on the sides of the ribs. And then we get to here, I'm at the right side, so the left fist, just a little bit of pressure. And same on the other side, just a small amount of pressure. And then we come to center, pausing, and let's release the arms and use my inhale. I'm going to press up through the palms here. I want to lift up at the back of the neck and drop the tailbone. And when I exhale, I'm going to bend the elbows. I'm going to touch my fingertips onto the shoulders, and then side to side again, reaching at the elbow. And then let's come into the center, pausing there, open the arms out. And then there's that left palm, look toward the left palm. That right hand, the one we don't see, turn the palm down and then rotate the thumb so it points behind. The elbow bends up. And just reach a bit more in the left. We'll come center, we'll spiral the arms. And we'll look right. And just spiraling the arms as we go side to side. So once we have the shoulders moving, you want to again feel the weight in the feet. Working on an even weight. There's some shift, but keeping it as even as we can. The tailbone dropping. And then when we look to the right, there's our last. And then just turn both palms up, come into center, inhale up again, pressing up through the palm, sinking the tailbone. reaching at the base of the neck. Really press for the ceiling. And then on the exhale, soften the arms. Let the arms come down. Now we'll change our legs. I'm going to lift the heels, swing the heels in, land the feet, and then work the feet a little wider. Okay, I'm going to take my hands here to the actual hip socket. So coming up the leg, there's that indentation. There's the socket. I'm just going to gently shift side to side. Now, what's important here is that we stay comfortable in the hip. So what you might want to do is adjust the distance between the feet. Because we're really exploring our own skeleton. Lots of personal angles in our skeleton's anatomy. And we want to find the right distances where we're able to create stretches without strain. So when we've found a place that's good for the feet, good for the hip, we'll pause at the right here for a moment. And then I'm going to bring up my left arm. I'm going to push up through the palm. I want to create a lift here. I'm going to press into my feet and tuck my tailbone, lift up at the base of the head. And then when I take my exhale, I'm going to bring that arm closer to the ear. I'm going to push out in the palm. I'm going to press down in the feet. And then an inhale to draw tall. And that hand's going to return to the hip. And then just a small movement. Before we go to the other side, get the hips in motion again. And then when you're ready, there's that left heading to the left side. Making sure the joints are comfortable. Being prepared to fine-tune the feet. There's that right arm coming vertical. Pushing up in the palm. A little tuck to the tailbone. Reaching out at the base of the skull. And then we're going to bring the arm close to the ear and push outward. Connect to the feet. And then the inhale draws us back up. Okay. Let's point the toes forward. And then bring the heels a bit closer. And then point the toes forward again and bend the knees again. And then be prepared to adjust here. You can always tell right away with the knee, how the knee feels. So little bits of variation in the distance between the feet usually takes care of that. I want that sink to the tailbone. The arms come up. And then here's my right. I'm going to push out through the right palm. I'm going to bring the right hand straight down, the left straight up. And really try to push the palms apart. Imagine the palms connecting between the shoulder blades. And as you push apart, see if you can take that area back a little bit, the tailbone a little tucked, back of the head reaching up. And we're going to come even with an in-breath. Out breath, we reach left, left down and right up. So weight in the feet, length down through the tailbone, up through the base of the skull. And then the in-breath will bring us neutral. And side to side, just one or two times, just create a little movement through the core. When we're ready to pause at the right side, just check that the hip is in the correct place. Even though we're pushing to the side, we want to feel as even as we can in the hip. Won't be completely even, but really explore there. Right down, left up, Bend the left elbow, point the fingers down, the palm out, and push. So as we pulse here, keep the neck long, reaching up at the base of the skull. And then pausing, and then releasing with the in-breath. And when you're ready, pressing left down and right up, connect the palms, and then bend that upper elbow, fingers point down, palm outward, and pulsing. So feet, tailbone, base of the skull. And when we press out, just pausing for an extra breath, a nice long breath. And then we're going to come up as we breathe in into neutral. And then release the arms, lift the heels, swing them in. And we get the legs straight again. And we'll get the legs a change. Just that gentle marching in place. Having the ball of the foot land first, a little moment before the heel. And when the right comes up, let it open sideways and return to the center. Always keeping this comfortable within the hip socket, within the SI joint. So our goal here is to work little muscles within the hips. When it's the right, to the side, then the foot touches the straight leg. And left, there's the last one. And just pausing for a moment after the left. Again, coming to that tall place, that mountain place. Tailbone is sinking, lifting at the base of the skull. And just feeling for ourselves that there's an immovable place inside. Okay, so let's work with straight legs. What I'm going to do is take the right leg and touch the toes out in front, and then over to the side, just straight out to the side against the lower leg. I'm going to take the toes back behind. I want the back heel down, so I bend the front knee. I'll just step back neutral. And for the left, it's forward, side, in, back, and down. So forward, side, in, back, and down. Now, when we're down, we lean forward just a little bit. And how much? Enough so we can work with the tailbone. Just that little tuck in with the tailbone and reach up at the back of the neck. So if we hold ourselves very straight up, then we're going to force the pelvis, the low back, into compression. So whenever we get to the right side, let's just pause at the right. So we stay a moment longer. We always are prepared to adjust our feet. We feel powerful down into our feet. And then when we're ready to move, we're going to imagine catching a beach ball. So we've got that ball between the hands. Try to keep the hands the same width apart. That back leg, when we're ready, we turn the whole torso towards the back leg. The ball's about eye height. We turn back as far as we can and then sweep low. Let the arms naturally rotate as we bring that ball low, and then sweep it back forward out in front, over to the other side, and then low and forward again. And we'll do this 2 more times. Okay, so when we're done, we'll be forward again. Now, rather than toss the ball away, let's put it on the ground in front of us and just let our fingertips touch down. Let the neck release, and we can look at that back foot. Okay, now we're going to leave here, creating a twist. So let's look at the front foot. Now bring the opposite hand over near the front foot. We need to work again with where we can place that hand. It can be on the inside of the foot. It could be in front of the front foot. It could be to the outside of the front foot. Wherever we place the hand, put it where we have strength. So we're going to take, we've got the front foot, the left hand comes off the ground, touches the sacrum. With the hand on the sacrum, I can create a little tuck with my tailbone. I can reach forward through the base of the skull and lengthen the core. I'm going to engage my belly into my low back. And then I'm going to turn my gaze over to the left side, the left shoulder gently turning upward. And then if it's comfortable, I'm going to release the left arm off the sacrum. I'm going to lift it up to the ceiling, and then I'm going to reach it outward. So it's above the ear. I'm just reaching out. I'm going to keep those fingers just pointed outward. And then I'm going to get out of here by taking that upper arm back onto the ground. I'm going to spread the arms apart about shoulder height. I'm on my fingertips. I'm going to come up when I inhale. And just have a moment. We're grounded into the feet. And then we're going to leave by bringing the back leg up. Again, another moment, feeling the weight through the soles of the feet. Check in with the tailbone, the base of the skull. For ourselves, just producing extension through our spine, an inner toe. And then to go for the left side, the left toes tap in front, out to the side, in by the ankle, back behind, and then bend the front knee. And then that little bit of fine tuning where we have internal strength and power in the posture. Long at the base of the skull, down to the tailbone, little tuck. We catch that beach ball again, and then we turn toward the back leg. And then it sweeps low to come forward, back in front, turning to the other side. And back in front. And we're going to do 2 more full cycles. And once we've had all 3 cycles, we come forward, we pause for a moment. When we're ready to move from here, we simply put the ball down on the ground. We touch the fingertips to the ground. So we're going to look at the back foot to lengthen the neck, reaching forward at the base of the skull. And then we're just going to look at our front foot. So the opposite hand comes over by the front foot. 3 places where it could go: on the inside, in front, the outside, whatever works for this side of the body. Once we have stability with that hand in place, Then the right hand comes on the sacrum. So here we can get a little tip to the tailbone. We can check our low back. We can lengthen the spine to the base of the skull. And when we're ready, as an optional move, we can take that hand off the sacrum and reach up for the ceiling. And then if we're comfortable, we reach forward. So the hand close to the arm, close to the ear, it won't get too close, shoulder width away, reaching outward, press into the back foot. And then to leave here, this upper arm simply comes back to the ground. And then the hands move apart, shoulder width. And then check the balance in the feet. Use the in-breath to draw up. And pause here for a moment. Again, check the balance in the feet. Create extension through the back body. And then step neutral. And again, have extension through the back body. Tailbone sinking, base of the skull lifting. Even weight in our feet. Okay. So let's come down on our mat. We'll do just a couple of things from hands and knees. So any way down today that's a convenient way. And then just any version to start on hands and knees. Always making sure our wrists are comfortable. So there's lots of different angles for the wrists, directions in which the fingers point, and explore some different ones. When we're ready for movement, we're just gently getting some extension in the spine, both by tucking the tailbone, tucking the chin. And seeing how long we can make the spine. And when we inhale, lifting in the armpits as well. And when we exhale, curving the spine inward. And just one or two more here. And then we're going to pause in neutral. Let's let the hips sink down. So as the hips drop back, we're going to reach the arms out long in front and have the hands maybe a little wider than the shoulders. The chin tucked a bit and reaching forward at the base of the skull, letting the hips, the weight of the hips is drop down, but with the arms in front. The hips won't land on the heels unless you really want them to. And we'll use an inhale, it'll bring us up. If we keep the hands where we are, as we go towards the arms, we're going to keep traveling. Shoulders may not get to the wrist, that's okay. As we go further forward, keeping the tailbone tucked. This is the difficult thing here, is to keep the tailbone tucked as the hips release down. So again, we won't get as far as what we could if we change the shape of the low back. But truly work with the tailbone tucked. You might feel how the abdomen works harder. Lift up at the base of the skull. And then reversing when we're ready, pressing the hips back. And we're going to drop back again. Now, as our weight drops back, we can fine tune where we've got the hands. With the arms way out in front like this, they will stop the hips sinking all the way down. Now, gently turn the armpits downward toward the mat. So it's like the armpits are trying to see each other. And at the same time, move forward through the base of the neck. Okay, just lifting the head and shifting the weight forward a bit, just so we can adjust the arms. We're going to do one more posture in this position. Now we've had the palms flat against the mat. What I'm going to do is come onto the outside edge of the palm, and I'm going to bend the wrist so the fingers point outward. And then drop the hips back and just push the arms out. Now I don't want my hips too far back. I want to be able to still tuck the tailbone, reach forward through the base of the skull, and push downward and forward through that outside edge of the palm. And then really put the arms to work for a breath or two. Press the hips back, push the arms forward, and then work with the neck, work with the skull, reaching the base of the skull toward the hands. Okay, so on an inhale, just release the hands a bit, shift the weight forward, and bring the hands back in closer to the body. One or two cat and dog stretches. And as we're working here, I want to keep a lift upward at the armpits. And then it's a neutral place somewhere in the center line when we're ready to maybe change the position of the arms and hands so it's easy for the wrists. Bring the knees in closer towards one another and let the hips sink to one side and sink to the other. The hips probably won't get all the way to the mat. Just looking for that gentle sideways motion. And then last side, after we've balanced both sides, come in the center line again. And then take the right foot straight back, the toes tucked under. Keeping the foot on the floor, press the heel down. Keeping the foot on the floor, press the knee up. And then when it's an inhale, shift the hips forward, float that leg up, and this time bend the knee, just where it's comfortable, push up through the foot, the heel, pressing the leg upward. And then as you breathe out, bend the knee more and swing the knee out in front and move the knee forward. And then maybe walk that left leg back a bit. So right now we've probably got the knee and the hip and the ankle, they're all lined up. If we just swung it forward, we're down pretty much in a straight line here. So this is often the most comfortable place for the joints. We can work in this posture, or if we want to take it with a little more joint rotation, what we're going to do is work that foot over to the other side a bit and the knee outward a little bit. And really explore the angle here that doesn't strain the joints, especially the knee. We can have angles that are very hard on the knee, and it's not long-term helpful. Ultimately, this posture is meant to stretch muscles within the hip. So making sure we've got angles that keep the knee comfortable. And that's both knees. Sometimes the back knee gets tired of the weight on it. And if that happens, simply tuck the toes on the back leg and then lift some of the weight or all of the weight off of that back knee. So again, we always want that little bit of tuck to our tailbone, a little bit of length at the base of the skull, and working from the inside, we use that to give the shape to the back. If we can always lift a bit through our armpits. And then if we'd like to go lower, we can just start the elbows bending, the arms walking forward, and we start to head our weight down a bit lower. We can go lower in stages. We can go as low as feels comfortable within the body. And then to leave this pose, we're just going to start walking the hands in. Now, when we've got the hands where there's real weight in the palms, the easiest way to get out of here really is with the back toes tucked, lift the back knee and just bring it forward a bit and then forward a bit more, step by step. And then at some point you can feel, oh, the weight's gone off that front leg enough that it can move easily. And then we come back into a place where we're on hands and knees. And we can take a couple of cat and dog stretches. And after a few of those, pausing in neutral, knees are no wider than the hips, maybe in a little bit. Explore different angles at the wrists. When you're ready, send the left foot back, the toes tucked under, pressing down through the heel, keeping the foot on the mat, lifting up at the knee. And then work with the length, the tailbone's a little tucked, and we reach forward at the base of the skull. And then when we do breathe in, shift the weight, float that back leg off the ground. We have a moment here where the leg's at hip height, and then we're going to bend the knee, and we're going to push up in the foot, just lifting as high as we comfortably can, getting a lot of work from big muscles. And then swing the knee forward, bending it more, land it out in front, and see if we can sink the weight down. And our first version really has the knee, the hip, and the ankle all lined up with each other. And that can be an excellent place to stay. If we want to explore, we can work the foot over to the other side, the knee outward a bit. Whichever version, whichever angles we work with, we can go a bit deeper, sliding the right leg further back. And so we get to our preliminary position, sinking the tailbone, reaching at the base of the skull, looking for extension in the spine, in the core, and really extension at the lumbar, the back of the waist. This is not a place to have the low back push forward and compress the spine. The armpits lift. Engaging the work by the internal sensation. Okay, and if we want to go forward, we just release the torso, walking the arms further out, and just allowing ourselves to come lower and lower. Okay, and then we start by lifting head, shoulders, working our hands in, and then tuck the back toes and walk that back leg closer and closer to take the weight off the front leg. And when we can easily move the front leg, coming onto hands and knees, and just having some cat stretches and dog stretches. And then we are going to let the hips drop back. So if it's okay for the hips to head down to the heels, do so and just sink back. If that's not great for the knees, keep the arms way out in front so they have some of the weight, and see where the hips can release to and our knees stay comfortable. Okay, we breathe in, we shift forward, and then we're going to come seated. Simply stretching the legs apart any distance that's comfortable, and just lightly shaking the legs, waving the legs back and forth a few times. And we'll come neutral. I'm going to turn the feet in just a little bit, point the toes back at the belly, and just touch wherever on the leg I can make contact. Always taking care of the low back. We start to do forward bends. We're not trying to actually in a forward bend overstretch the low back. We want the movement from the hip socket. There's a pelvic rotation. So looking internally again for some of that. Sinking the tailbone, reaching out through the base of the skull. And then simply working with the breath, giving ourselves a nice long exhale. And let the inhale fill the chest. And on the inhale, there's that kind of surge to the upper chest. Let the upper chest reach outward. And on the out breath, breathing all the way down into the low belly. And let's give the arms a job. We'll bend the elbows a bit. Get the arms and shoulder blades to widen apart and strengthen the arms means less work has to be done by the low back. And some energy on the inner thighs, a little less work from the low back. And we want to tuck the chin enough so the jaw closes naturally, reaching outward at the base of the skull. Now we're going to come up as we inhale. So let the hands slide up the legs, breathing ourselves back tall. So there is energy in the thighs. And then lift the ribs up out of the hips. And we need a breath. We're going to inhale the arms up. We can have a moment here when we reach up tall. So tucking the chin, reaching at the base of the skull, sinking the tailbone, and push up long. Now, when we exhale, let the arms drop, turn toward the right, touch the right fingertips behind the left fingertips in front, and just gently looking back. So reach up. Now go inside the skull. Reach up at the soft palate. And just feel where you've got the soft palate. See if you can internally place it above the center of your hips. And we're going to come forward as we inhale. Let the arms float up and turn front. And let's elongate again, having an extra breath or two. When we're ready, breathing out, we'll bring the arms down, turning to the other side, just the fingertips touching. Reaching up, base of the skull, soft palate, tucking the tailbone, gently turning. And the breathing in. Bring us forward. Again, reaching tall, extra breath, push the ceiling up. Sink the tailbone, lift at the base of the skull. And then when you're ready to exhale, soften the arms, go wide, go forward, touch in a comfortable place. Let the chin tuck, have the arms working, reaching at the base of the skull, have the inner thighs working, sinking the tailbone. And then in breath, sliding the hands up the legs. And then we're going to bend up the legs. Let's lean back. They get to shake out a little bit. And then when we're ready, we're going to land the legs. So here's my left leg. I'm going to move it into the center line. So the navel lines up with that foot. And the right leg then steps over to the outside. So I'm going to take that Opposite arm, wrap it around that knee. I'm going to press weight into that foot, and this knee presses forward a little bit. Connect it down into the hip, with the hip moving forward a little bit. Now I want to move the abdominal wall past this front thigh. So I'm going to lean back and create a little more turning motion. And then I'm going to close the distance again. Straight leg has energy. The big toe would love to turn all the way around and look at me. So it's doing some interesting rotation, turning inward, pulling toward me, pressing on the right foot. And now this right hand, if you've got a strong grip here, it may be available to just wrap it around the body. So as we're twisted to the right, work with the core body. A little tuck to the tailbone. You can find just that little tuck and reaching up the back body to the base of the skull, lifting up. And then even more interior, the soft palate lifting there. Having the soft palate above the center of the hips. And then let's release. So inhale, coming forward, bring that back arm forward, both hands, hold this front leg for a moment. And then I'm going to undo that front leg. I'm just going to step it back up. It's lined up with the hip. I'm going to bend in the left. So for a moment, I'm here. Left leg bent, right foot still pressing lightly in the ground. I'm holding the knee for balance. And before we go to the other side, I'm just getting a little rocking circle in the pelvis, in the hips, and both directions. And we're just exploring what we can find within our hips. So there's side to side, and there's also circling a bit. So imagine you were creating that circle around the bowl of the hip and just playing a little bit. And then we'll come neutral. We're going to switch legs. So we'll start just by straightening the right leg. Right leg's going to come inward, foot lines up with the navel, left goes to the outside. Press on the left foot, move the left knee forward. So let's take the opposite elbow, wrap it around the knee, lean back a little bit, move some of the abdomen past the leg, and then bring the distance, close up the distance between the torso and the thigh. So we get a little extra work out of this straight leg. I'm going to turn that base of the big toe back toward me. Last thing, this knee pushing forward. So I've got a free arm. I'm going to start by touching the fingertips, starting my rotation. And with the support of these back fingers, I can fine-tune the spine, sinking the tailbone, reaching the base of the skull. And then, if we wish, that backhand can stay with the fingertips touching. That's an excellent place. We can also explore wrapping the arm around the back. But always, the most important thing is the internal connection through the core body. Tailbone sinking, base of skull lifting, soft palate above the center of the hips. And being able to press a little bit of weight onto that flat foot and that bent knee pressing forward a tiny bit. And then let's release. So bringing that back arm forward, wrapping it around that left leg. Take the left leg outward, Bring in the right. Just bend the knee, put the foot down. So we're just gripping or touching this front knee for a bit of support. And we're just exploring kind of a gentle churning motion in the hips, in the pelvis, both directions. Okay, and then we'll come neutral. We're going to go back to the first side, and we'll start in a very similar place where I bent the right knee. Excuse me, this is a left knee. Left knee's bent down. And now the left knee moves. So we often put it down, it's outward, right? It's out to the side. I'm going to bring it in a bit. And then I'm going to see if I can take my right and step it over the left. So right gripped by left. So it's basically the same twist, but a slightly deeper version. Now, sometimes this is not a comfortable place for the knee, and don't fight with that. Some days it's not a good day for the knee. Don't fight with it. Just straighten out the leg again. Same movement when we're ready to move some of the abdominal wall past the thigh, close up the distance. Same sense of pressing a little weight into this flat foot, taking the knee forward just that little bit. And you can feel the linkage into the core. And then work inside the core. There's that tiny scoop at the tailbone, a lifting up. We've got a free hand. We can touch the fingertips behind. We can wrap it round the back. And then we'll add the twist by looking backward, turning the ribs backward. And once we've created twisting motion, feel that right foot, add some contact, right knee pressing forward. And every time we adjust in the extremities, we look inside and fine-tune the core. Okay, we're going to release. So soften, inhale forward, bring the back arm forward. And now I'm going to undo this right leg from the outside and just plant it down. Okay. So we're going to get a pose from this place. So here's my left fingertips. They're just going to touch down. And my right hand's going to go straight forward. So initially, I'll rotate the arm. Fingers are down, thumb outward. I'm going to press on that right foot, move that right knee forward. So that right hip lifts a little bit. And I'm going to push out in the palm. So really, this is another internal twist. It's an open twist. I want to tuck the tailbone, reach up at the base of the skull, push outward. And so this left arm carrying some of the weight. Let's come up in that left armpit. Okay, let's soften. Relax down, release the arm, just hook it on the leg. And just before we do the other side, just a little bit of that gentle churning in the pelvis, both directions. Okay, and then neutral, and just switch the legs. So this is really our M position. It's easy to use it as a start place. This right knee, I'm going to bring it in a little bit. This left foot steps over. Opposite arm around the knee. again, this might not be comfortable for the bottom knee. If that's the case, simply stretch the leg out. Okay, so this is our first version of the twist. It's very effective. Bit by bit, right? We're opening up the muscles, opening the tendons so the joints have more mobility, but we don't get joint mobility by straining the ligaments of the joints. So I've got the opposite arm on the knee. I lean back to make some space so I can move the abdominal wall a bit to the side, close the distance up. Connect to the sole of the foot, move the knee forward, and then this arm is free. It can reach behind. I use this arm just for a bit of support, where I organize the tailbone, the base of the skull, the roof of the mouth. And once I'm aligned, I can take that arm potentially around the back. It's not a requirement. Always the most important thing is core extension. Okay, let's release. So the back arm moves forward. That left leg undoes. So left leg bent where it's comfortable. Right leg down. I'm going to take my right fingertips. I'm going to extend my left arm. It's going to push forward through the palm. Let the hip lift and turn. So tucking tailbone, reaching up at the base of the skull. And then soften back. And then again, just holding the bent knee, the upright knee, so that we can do a couple of churns through the hips, exploring both directions. And then back neutral. And then let's undo the legs. So we'll let them have a little shake, lean back and shake them out. And then we're going to come onto our back. Let's see if we can do one more twist. So once we're down on the back, just take a moment to release the weight of the spine. And we let our belly soften so the breath is able to freely move the belly. Okay, so we'll go to our last twist when we're ready to bring the knees in so they're touching, the feet really close to the hips, and then just roll the body over onto the side. So this lower side, this lower arm grabs the top knee. And then on the upper side, that upper hand goes behind the head. So we rest the head on the palm, keeping the neck open and feeling long. The gaze, the face is upward toward the ceiling, but the gaze is down that top side of the body toward that top hip. And gently move that top hip away from the shoulder. Keeping the chin tucked and the neck open. We're going to shift the face over towards that top elbow. And take the eyes gently towards that top elbow. And so you can relax that top shoulder, that top arm, and let it drop down toward the mat. Now let's take this a little deeper. So first turn the head back to the ceiling. Take the palm from behind the head. So now the face is upward, the gaze toward that top side, and the top arm is free. So let's reach it out wide to the side like the elbow was. But then bend the wrist, rotate the arm, push outward through the palm. And as we're pushing outward, soften the shoulder blade, so you can get the shoulder blade to let go and drop toward the ground. So the fingers are just off the ground. And we're pressing outward, but not so hard that we're preventing the shoulder and shoulder blade releasing down. Just a little energy out through the palm. And then soften that arm, bend it in, and then let's come fully onto that lower side. So take the twist out of the core, come onto the side, and then this top arm, bend the elbow, put the palm down just above the head. This top elbow pushes away from the hip, and the hip gently moves away from the elbow. The tailbone tucks. The base of the skull reaches upward. The chin tucks. Our gaze now is going to go upward. Imagine trying to see your eyebrows. Look for your eyebrows. And then open the jaw and stick out the tongue and point the tongue at the navel. And still reaching up at the base of the skull. And relax the face, relax the gaze, the eyes, the mouth. And bring this top arm back down near the hip. And then ease onto the back. And just take a moment to feel the difference between the sides of the body. And we're going to go to the other side. So we bring the knees close, the feet close in near the hips. And we're just going to tip our torso over onto the side. So this bottom arm hooks on the top leg. Let the shoulders drop down toward the mat. This free hand, this top arm, bend the elbow, put the palm behind the head. So have the face toward the ceiling and the gaze down that top side and that top hip, just a small movement away from the top shoulder. And then turn the head a little bit so you can start to look at that bent elbow. And we're going to let the shoulder and the shoulder blade soften, letting the arm sink away. And then take the gaze back up toward the ceiling, the palm from behind the head. And then reach the arm out about 45 degrees, rotating the arm, pushing out through the palm, but just enough push to keep the arm long, to keep the arm extended, and let the shoulder and shoulder blades soften downward. And then soften that top arm. Let the elbow bend and roll back up so that we're fully on the side body. So the bottom hand still has the top thigh. This top arm, bend the elbow and put the palm on the ground, just above the head. This top side, push the elbow out, move the hip away. And then tuck the chin, tuck the tailbone. Reach up at the base of the skull with the eyes. We're going to look for the eyebrows. And then opening the mouth, point the tongue at the navel. And keep reaching at the base of the skull. And then relax the face, relax the arm, bring the arm down near the hip, and let's come onto our back. And just pausing to let the weight of the back rest on the ground. And just listening to the sensations we have in the body. If the body is ready just to lay down on the ground, releasing its weight, we'll go there. Sometimes we get to this place and the body knows another position. We've done some deep core manipulation. And sometimes our body isn't quite done and wants another position. So if that's the message from the body, go to that pose. But when the body is ready, simply extending the legs, releasing the arms away from the sides, adjusting the spine so it's comfortable, and letting the attention come onto the breathing. Simply observing the body as it breathes. And let's begin to move again, moving in our fingers, our toes, and the ankles and the wrists. With an inhale, reaching out in the arms, stretching down the legs. And on an exhale, bringing the legs in, holding and shifting our weight gently side to side. And then taking our weight to either side, bringing ourselves up to sitting.